It's a Monday night, which means this is the last Monday night without football until 2025. And that means it's time for our show. I'm Kendrick. That's Jared. Below me is Chris. Thank you again for joining us for another edition of our show live tonight on a Monday night. A lot of stuff to get into. Gonna be pretty basketball heavy. Oh, football season upon us, but we will talk football though. I guarantee you, we will talk college football tonight. But our first topic tonight will be a story Chris Stevens actually brought to our attention late last week on Friday, where he discovered that Kenny Blakeney, the head coach for Howard basketball, he wants to sell off parts of the Howard basketball program to investors to help fund the basketball program, which is a pretty interesting concept considering that Blakeney said he was tipped off to do this because of he had heard that college basketball was going to go the same route of college football, where there's going to be more emphasis on Power Five conferences, getting all the money from TV revenue, from advertising revenue. So he thought, well, why not try to get ahead of the game and let's sell off parts of our basketball program, 33 and a third percent Steiner math, by the way, to our basketball program for our basketball program. So Chris, you wrote about this last week. What Blakeney's concept is. What do you think about what he's proposing here for his program, and what does it mean you think for Black colleges in general?
First of all, that is a great pull. Shouts out to the legendary Big Papa Pump, legendary Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. That is
greatest
brilliant.
promo ever.
Goodness gracious. But yeah, it's not surprising that somebody in the HBCU space was going to try this, or at least broach the topic. And we before we came on air, we were just mentioning that Howard, just kind of sort of seems to be ahead of the curve with regards to everything. So when Coach Blakeney when he talked to the Washington Post about this, I read the article and I was like, he makes some good points, because here's the thing. We already know that we have entered a brand new era of college sports where people don't have to hide the fact now that they're making money off the kids. Now it's just that you can't make money off the kids and not kick them down something. So Coach Blakeney is being realistic, and it's kind of hurtful to realize, but all Black college sports right now is like in a very sort of limbo-ish type of space, because you don't know which way these schools are going when it comes to with these universities, what they're going to do with regards to trying to make money for their athletic programs. So 33 and a third percent, I guess it makes sense. You don't forfeit the entire program, but at the same time, you really have to do your due diligence if you're going to bring in, private equitors and all of that, to make sure, these people aren't, running any Ponzi schemes. Because I mean, New York Mets fans can tell you about Ponzi schemes. Bobby Bonilla is still getting paid $1.13 million until he is well beyond retirement age. And Bobby Bonilla played his last major league game in 2001. So here we are in 2024, excuse me. So you really want to be careful when you start bringing in outside businesses to not just any sports organization, but especially for colleges, because if we're admitting that amateur sports is dead, cool, but let's not just make it a free-for-all either.
Yeah, Chris, like I would agree with that. Like with NIL, and now the players can make money without penalty. And coaches' salaries have increased across the board, except for maybe in a few places, and we'll get to that a little bit later. College sports is big business, and it's always been big business, and it will continue to be big business. And so, why not explore these opportunities to see if you can have your program supplemented by some big money investors? Howard University is one of the elite Black colleges in our country, and they have a lot of prominent people in our society in all realms of careers and pursuits. So maybe there's some big money donors out there who would be willing to back Howard basketball, which has been one of the more successful programs at the university and in the MEAC as well over the last couple of years. They made tournament runs. They've been competing for conference championships over the last couple of years. So yeah, like why not do this? Any objection at all to this concept, Jared?
Well, I don't have the knowledge to really say whether or not this is a good or bad idea. But what I can say is that if there's any HBCU with a brand that is that has value, upon investors, that would make investors, raise an eyebrow, it would be Howard. You know what I mean? Especially their basketball program. So this is definitely a situation where Howard is ahead of the game. They may know something that we don't know, that you know could push their program forward, could push their athletes forward. And I'm curious to see what the aftermath is going to be from this. You know what I mean? Uh, I'm interested in sitting back and learning rather than just to being quick to speak. You know what I mean? This is a situation where I would like to learn something and find out what the benefits of this are, what this deal is, and can other HBCUs potentially follow suit. So I'm just excited to learn, sit back and learn what happens from this and the benefits of it. Maybe if there are some drawbacks from it, who knows? But I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yes, just give you a little bit of parameters that Blakeney is proposing. He's calling for revenue to be split three ways. First, between the potential owner, the university, and the men's basketball program, as well as collective bargaining with the players. Blakeney recognized, according to our story that Chris wrote, that Dartmouth University's men's basketball team unionizing could lead to many more athletic programs forming unions in the future. And so he wants to be prepared for that. And we reported that Sportico reported that Howard spent more than $1 million on men's basketball in fiscal year 2023. So I guess Blakeney guys is looking at this like it's gonna get really more expensive to like um fund this sport based on all the changes that's going on. So why not get ahead of the game and say let's try to offset some of this cost that the university will have to take on to someone else to try to help out with this. Do you think, Chris, this is something realistic? This is something that some investor or investors will be willing to pursue? Not, considering that Howard isn't like a traditional blue blood college basketball program.
I would say any other HBCU, this would be a pipe dream, but Howard University, as we've known over the years, is the one of the bigger. I mean, it's one of the first. It's probably the first HBCU you think of, quite honestly. I mean, others will dispute that, but when you say HBCU, you say Howard University, at least in the first two or three. So there's going to be a black excellence business owner out there somewhere over the rainbow. I don't know who it would be, but I'm pretty certain that they would be either an alum or someone adjacent, someone with connections to the university that says, okay, I like this idea. We can do what we can give the Coach Blakeney what he needs for NIL recruiting. We could spruce up the Burr, which is probably, for the record, just want to get on record as saying it's probably one of the top three places I've ever watched a college basketball game. I love Burr Gymnasium. That's just me. I just wanted to put that out there. But in general, it could happen. I mean, it just depends on if it's the right fit, because as I said, you really don't want to venture down some roads where people can be scamming you, like to the tune of, we'll say, $237 million worth of money that doesn't exist. So just got to be careful with that.
Happens
Kendrick,
all the time.
you're on
Um,
mute, buddy.
like clockwork. See,
I'm
we're in
mute.
mid-season form.
Yes,
Mid-season.
missing the form in the off season.
And I think
Special, the double.
the double
Yeah,
whammy.
yeah. Iris. Yeah, double whammy too. I froze. Yeah, it's one of those nights. Yeah, one of our commenters, Brandon Cyrus, mentioned like when has venture capitalism helped any situation, and he mentions like Red Lobster. But here's the thing: there's a lot of people with a lot of money involved in college sports. I think of someone like I don't know Boone Pickens, Oklahoma State, big time investor. He doesn't want to see Oklahoma State crash. Well, some might argue he does, considering he hasn't fired Mike Gundy yet. That's another story for another day. Um, But yeah, but like he's invested tons of money into the Oklahoma State football program and the university over the years. You look at Phil Knight with Nike, what he's done with Oregon, and all the billions he spent on that program to make it what it is. So there can be some benefits, at least in college sports, as opposed to regular businesses like a restaurant or I don't know newspapers, for example, where venture capitalists take over and they reshape the product and they fire all the employees to reshape it their own. For college sports, these people get into it are wanting to win. And they want to make money too, obviously, but they really want to win for the most part. So while that may be a legitimate concern, I don't think we'll see like a venture capitalist say like, "Hey, like we want to change Howard University's basketball program into something totally different than what it already is." It probably be more like a reshuffle of the program. Yeah. So any final thoughts about this, guys?
I just got a question I want to pose in regards to this situation. What would be some things that, uh, say, an investor comes in and they, buy into the program? What are some things that they can do to improve the Howard brand? And do you think that the Howard student body would be receptive to any changes that could potentially be made? Because if we know anything about Howard and their student body and their alumni base, is that they are steadfast in everything that is going on within their uh, the university. It's between them and Florida A&M, between who's most involved in everything that goes on in and out of the program. So, one, what would be some things that could potentially be done to improve the Howard brand? And would the student body and alumni base, do you guys think, would be receptive to any changes that could potentially be made?
Well, that's the thing because I mean Howard, they do a pretty good job of, protecting their brand and, building it up. So I mean, whoever this is, I mean, this is why I said any other HBCU would be kind of sort of like dismissed because, nobody's going to take seriously, just example, if Delaware State, said, okay, we want somebody to pay for the football program, everybody would just look at the record and say, what football program? But as far as Howard goes, they have the clout, they have the tradition, they have the brand to do this. And as far as the um, student body and the alumni base goes, I think we got another subject that we're going to talk about, how some fan groups and fan bases and alumni bases can be a little overzealous or just completely unserious. But if the Howard University's alumni group and their current student body, they're very protective of Howard and rightfully so. So I don't think anybody that's coming in just going to expect to throw whatever it is, $100 million around and have their way. They're going to be sadly mistaken. They're going to bring the money, yes, but they're still going to have to acquiesce to what Howard, with the students and with the alumni want.
Yeah, like I would agree with that. Like you're not gonna go in just because you have a lot of money and change everything. You will have some influence, which we've seen in college sports too, with like uh, big time money donors when it comes to like, for example, like hiring and firing coaches. But like as far as the core of the program, the core of the athletic department, the core of the university, like schools really like hold tight to that. They don't want that to be changed too much. If you just go invest in basketball or football, whatever sport you're talking about, that's going to be the focus, not like change the complexion of the entire university just because you make a lot of money. And I would hope like Howard or whoever else gets involved with this does not like acquiesce in that way to venture capitalists or big time donors because they have a bunch of money while compromising their own culture and whatnot just to be competitive in sports.
Here, here.
Yeah, so fellas, sticking with our basketball theme, we didn't talk about this last week when it kind of broke, but we did write about it. Florida A&M, no, hired a basketball coach, Patrick Carney the second, and it came out recently, and Chris, you kind of wrote about this last week too, of how the board of trustees were not willing to give the basketball coach more than a 1-year deal because they felt it was too risky because of his background being a non-Division One basketball coach. They wanted to prove himself first before they make a long-term commitment to him, which to me doesn't make any sense. Why like waste the resources trying to hire a coach, going through the whole process when you only going to have him on a prove it deal for 1 year. You might as well have hired an interim coach, which he basically is for 1 season. But Chris, what do you think about what FAMU's doing here as far as their basketball program is concerned?
This is the most unserious board of trustees I have ever seen in my entire life. And none of this makes any sense. For the record, the last time Florida A&M men's basketball had a winning season was 2007. I had hair on top of my head. Tell you how long ago this was. And they won the MEAC. They upset Delaware State in the championship game when it was in Raleigh, North Carolina. It used to be the SBC Center. I can't remember what the name of the gym is now, but it's not really important to this discussion. But I just remember it being 2007. That was the last time Florida A&M had a winning record in men's basketball. When you think about 17 years in the space of college sports, that's a very long time. That's probably 6 or 7 recruiting classes for the most part. And you haven't been any good in the sport since then. So you're going against your AD, and I'm going to drop a bombshell on y'all. I mean, no, I don't have any inside sources. Don't call me Woj. Don't call me Shrams. I mean, not Shrams, Shams. Shrams, excuse me. Don't call me any of those gentlemen. I don't have that kind of clout, but I'm going to give you guys a theory. But first, let me get to the point. Florida, no, Brandon, they don't. They don't. It's abundantly clear that they don't. But the point is Patrick Crary II has won over 200 games at the NAIA level. No, it's not the NCAA level, but you're still coaching college kids. That counts for something. You can't. You don't win 200 basketball games as a coach by accident. You can't just go ahead and roll the balls out and say, "Okay, guys, go win them for me." You got to coach. And what was interesting about what I wrote was that a couple of board trustee members said we had former college coaches, former NBA coaches interested in the job. Let me ask you something. Doesn't Bethune-Cookman have a former NBA player as a men's basketball coach and athletic director? Have they won anything yet? Jackson State, sorry, Kendrick, had a football team that won 2 straight SWAC championships, but was the juice worth the squeeze with Deion Sanders? I venture to say that most JSU, most of hell no. So,
but a lot would argue, yeah, because of the notoriety and things he's done and the attention he brought to the university, and obviously the winning helped too. Yeah, I think some would say, yeah, it was a win-win in that regard, but maybe some other stuff, maybe not.
Yeah, but if you're going to sit here and say, and you're waiting for a former NBA player, a former NBA coach, or a former HBCU coach who might have had success to save you, then you're just going to wait for a long time because, again, you haven't won anything in 17 years. You had a former NBA player and alum, Clem Johnson, who was the member of the Sixers 83 championship team. He graduated from Florida A&M. He was the coach for a while. They couldn't win with him. So, I mean, if you're just going to wait for an NBA guy to come and save you, it's not going to happen. So here's my hot take. This is not going to go over well with the Florida A&M fan base on Twitter who like to just jump in people's mentions and talk crazy. But it's very clear that this board does not have any confidence in athletic director Tiffany Dawn Sykes because they've undercut her at every single turn. They would not let her hire a football coach. They don't want to let her hire a basketball coach. So, and now that Larry Robinson is no longer president, it's very clear that they want this woman out. And it sucks because she never has gotten a fair chance to do her job. So the point is like, why are you just letting this woman twist in the wind? If y'all just want to go ahead and push her out and get somebody in who you think is going to be better and probably won't be, then just go ahead and do it. But for all intents and purposes, just stop trying to couch it as, oh, we have concerns about, how the football coach thing went about, or, we don't know if this basketball coach will win or not. How do you know if you don't give him a chance? And giving him a 1-year deal at a reduced rate than what he agreed to? Because I'm gonna tell you something. If I agree to work for a job and someone signs me up for an amount of money, and someone else comes and say, "Oh no, we're going to decrease that," then you're going to be looking for somebody else to fill this position. So whatever this board of trustees is trying to prove, all they're proving is they're the most unserious bunch when it comes to athletics that I have ever seen, and it's very disheartening to see a university like Florida A&M just kind of fall by the wayside like this, because that's what's in danger of happening.
Yeah, and I have on the screen right now some statements made by some members of the board of trustees regarding the coach. For people who can see it, I'll just read it out loud. From one board member, they said, "Everyone knows it takes time for a program to rebuild. I get that. I want to be careful what I say because I'm not trying to be disparaging. Anytime somebody say that, they're going to be disparaging. But out of 50 candidates, this person probably wouldn't have finished in the top 5 in most races." And another board member added, "It bothers me when I see some names on there, many of which I don't even know, but I look at their background and experience and wonder how we got to this individual." Talking about Kirby. That's 2 divisions beneath where we are playing in the SWAC. To those points, you're being disparaging when you say I'm not going to be disparaging. That's like saying I don't mean to be offensive, but you're going to be offensive. Here's the sitch. Y'all hired a football coach whose last head coaching job in college was in Canada, and he was given a 3-year contract. And you're telling me that this basketball coach, who has been backed by no other than Shaka Smart, who led a team to the Final Four, has been relatively successful in college basketball, can't get the same respect as James Cozy? And I know James Cozy has ties to Florida, especially with high school recruiting and all that stuff. He was a part of the staff to help Florida A&M win a national championship last year. But you telling me that you can't give this coach more than 1 year on a contract? He has to prove it to you when the head football coach doesn't, despite the fact his last coaching job wasn't even in the United States of America. Yeah, that doesn't look right. The math ain't mathing with that one, as the kids say. Jared, your thoughts on this?
I disagree with both of you wholeheartedly.
Oh
I mean,
God, you're
just
fired,
why not?
Jared.
I mean, why not just wait for LeBron James to retire from the NBA so he could be their head coach? It makes perfect sense. He endorses them. He outfits them. It makes perfect sense. Why stop at LeBron James? Get Michael Jordan. He is perfect. He has a brand. He has a recognizable brand. Everybody's gonna come to the games. It is perfect. It is brilliant. Why stop at Michael Jordan? Get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I am being sarcastic. This is so stupid. This is very, very stupid. And you brought up the point that they endorsed James Cozy. Let me give you some stats. James Cozy's career record, you would think it was like 30-0, right? You would think it was like 40-0 the way that they were endorsing him ahead of Sean Gibbs, right? He was 18-20. So what are you talking about? You need somebody that is proven. What has James Cozy done? No disrespect to James Cozy. He is a very respected coach. He's respected in that locker room. He has the camaraderie with the players. This is not to be disparaging at him. But when you talk about you want a coach that is proven, that has a proven track record, he does not have that as a head coach. Meanwhile, Patrick Crary, he has led St. Thomas to a USCAA national championship. He has a national championship under his belt. So whether you think he was in the NAIA level or the USCAA level, he won. He's a former coach of the year. He has a proven track record. It may not be in the division that you're at, but he won. And you're talking about rebuilding. You haven't had a winning season in 17 years. You're way past rebuilding. You're at the point where you're trying to build something. It ain't no rebuild. The was 17 years ago. That's too long for you to be talking about you're still rebuilding. You need to start taking some risks. And Patrick Crary may very well be a risk, but he's a risk that has had success elsewhere. And by the way, you brought up the fact that they had a winning season in 17 years. Guess how many times they've had a winning conference record in that 17 years? 4. When you're supposed to have, when we're looked at as the worst conference in Division I, when everybody talks about our conference is not competitive, you have had a winning conference record 4 times. So when you're supposed to win, you don't win. When you're not supposed to win, you don't win. So there's no reason for you to be trying to say that, oh, this person is unproven and they. What about him? He's taking a risk too because his reputation is on the line as well. He's taking the risk of bringing his family, bringing himself to Tallahassee to create a new life for himself, where he had leaving where he had security and coming to your program to try to help out your program have some success that you haven't had in almost 2 decades. And you're talking about he's unproven. These board of trustees need to understand something. Everybody is not trying to fight to be a part of your program. He has other options, I promise you. If you drop him tomorrow, he will have a job in the next 10 minutes because he has a proven track record. Ain't too many people going to be lining up to be a coach of a Florida A&M team that ain't won in 17 years unless they just trying to win a bet to see if they can win for the first time with your program. Perfect. What's the difference between FAMU and the fan? Nothing, but both delusional. I ain't trying to put we know who he's talking when he said the fan, but I will agree that the board of trustees are so delusional. You are so delusional. Florida A&M has an amazing brand, athletics, and as a university in education. Absolutely, they do. But to think that people are supposed to have a list of accomplishments longer than LeBron James to line up to be the coach of your program, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, especially when I keep having to say it. You ain't won nothing. So stop expecting other people to have resumes that you don't. That was my long way of saying stop being delusional and trust the process. Put your faith in somebody for once. The lack of faith is so undeserving. It's so undeserving for them to have a lack of faith in somebody that they haven't even given a second look at. And it's ridiculous. All right, I'm done.
Mic drop. Yeah, that was sensational.
That was really good. But if Chris, if you're Patrick Curry, like, why do you take this job? Like, why do you agree to coach on a 1-year deal, knowing your chops, your background, the success you had in college basketball? Why would you want to endure a 1-season prove-it deal at Division I basketball school?
Because if I mean, I don't know Patrick Curry II. I mean, I've never met him, and but from whatever, I mean, what more do you need from a cosign than Shaka Smart, for crying out loud? But I think he's probably going to take this deal and, as a way to say, okay, all right, you don't believe, I'm going to make you believe. And then there's going to be a lot. I mean, there will be a lot of crow if by some strange incident, by strange coincidence, Florida A&M comes up with a winning record in the SWAC this year. Not saying they're going to overtake any Grambling for the SWAC championship, because I feel like that's Gramblings for the next couple years at minimum. But if they can get at least a winning record in conference and then make it to at least the SWAC semifinals, then cool. Then he's proven that, yes, he is a good coach. Then I would absolutely tell them to take this job and shove it, because I guarantee you that a high-level Division II or low-level PWI with a little more security and a little more common sense within the board of trustees is going to offer him a job. So, yeah, I would take this. If I was Patrick Curry II, I'd say, all right, okay, cool. All right, 1 year, no problem. And then after I win, now you got to restart again. Good luck. But then again, I'm just petty. I mean, I might not be. I mean, Patrick Curry II, I don't know if he's petty like I am, but I'm absolutely petty Pendergrass about it. We're going to close the door on you behind. Trust me.
Yeah, which brings me to my next point. Like, if you're the board of trustees and you're the university, like, you go through this search process for a coach, You invest time and resources and all this, and you come up with a guy, and you name that guy, but you're gonna say, well, we want you to prove that you're good, despite the fact of going over your resume and talking to you and looking at your credentials and all that stuff. We're like, if you're gonna make all that effort only to hire this guy on a 1 year deal, why not just have the coach from the previous staff lead the team for 1 year? Because basically you're saying this accomplished coach is an interim coach. He's not even good enough to be considered someone you want to marry long term. Despite what Chris and Jared have said about these guys. And Shaka Smart, by the way, an accomplished Division I coach has said about his basketball resume. It's just a bad look to me. Like I don't see how anybody could justify it rationally, because it doesn't make any sense. Like if you talk about rebuilding, like Jared said, like you don't rebuild by only giving your head coach a 1 year contract. That's just saying, well, if we do well, we're just gonna hire somebody else. Okay, if you hire somebody else, are they gonna get 1 year deals? Are you gonna continue to hand out 1 year deals until you find someone who actually is gonna be successful, stable at the job? And plus, like, if you're a coach out there who wants to get a job, are you gonna consider Florida A&M for a basketball job? I wouldn't want to consider playing coach for Florida A&M. If I don't know I'm gonna get 1 year deal, like moving my family across the country or from wherever they come from, only to get a 1 year contract with the possibility I may get additional years. No, it's the juice ain't worth the squeeze, in my opinion.
Hold on. To that point, think about this now. What recruit would want to go to a college that has had 3 coaches in 3 years? What recruit would want to do that? What recruit would want to go to Florida A&M not knowing who the head coach is going to be tomorrow? That makes no sense. When you're talking about rebuilding, the most important word when you talk about rebuilds is stability. You have to have some resemblance of stability for you to be able to rebuild. If you have no stability, you have no program. You have no recruits that want to be a part of your program. So all of your recruiting is going to go out the window. All of your team chemistry is going to go out the window because your program is a revolving door. You have players coming in for 1 year. You have coaches coming in for 1 year. And it makes no sense. Find a coach, put your faith in him, give him time to do the work, the necessary work it takes to actually rebuild. And if it doesn't work after a certain amount of time, then yes, move on. But at least give them some time. Give them your faith. Because guess what? It can also work out. Because what happens if Chris does what he said he would have done and be petty and said, I led y'all to a winning record, now I want to leave? Or if another program gives him more money than you're willing to offer him, then you're going to be looking SOL with dirt on your face because you didn't want to give somebody a chance who has a proven track record that the AP Coach of the Year put his stamp on. The AP Coach of the Year, the highest honor that a coach can win, he said that this was a great hire. And you're saying, oh, I don't know, I'm skeptical of him. If I'm looking at the AP Coach of the Year saying that this is a great hire and the Board of Trustees saying that I'm skeptical, I'm going to believe the Coach of the Year 100 times out of 100. Take his advice, give this man a long-term contract, and allow him to do the necessary work it takes to build a program, because you can't do it on a year-by-year basis.
I mean, I think Jared should act as the agent for Mr. Patrick Crary in the situation. Negotiate a bigger contract for the man when he wins at FAMU.
Yeah, you don't want me to do it because I'm going to tell him to leave.
I mean, and it doesn't even have to be Patrick Crary. I'm saying anybody, whoever it is that they believe is the right coach, whoever Tiffany Dawn Sykes puts her coach in, puts her faith in, give him a long-term contract, allow him to do the necessary work. It could be Patrick Crary, it could be LeBron James, it could be Allen Iverson. I don't care who it is. Whoever the next guy is that they want to be the next head coach, give him a long-term contract, allow him to do his work, and Board of Trustees butt out. Plain and simple.
Yeah, like it would be nice to get the thinking behind some of these decisions that are happening, not just at FAMU, but like a lot of places when it comes to like board of trustee decisions that they make in terms of coaches and stuff like that. Like what goes into that. We'll definitely explore that at a later time. But yeah, it's definitely confounding what's going on in FAMU right now with their basketball program. I mean, just a few months ago, they were all riding high after winning a championship in football, and now months later, it's the hits keep on coming, man, for FAMU, and it's another case of it right here. How do we move on from this? We talk football, and we talk Division II football, and we talk the SIAC and CIAA football in particular. And our man Jared Hoffman crafted a top 10 for Division II football for our ultimate HBCU Sports preseason poll. And maybe to the surprise of many, myself included, he's got Benedict number one, despite the fact they lost to great Tennis Berry as their head coach. We see Virginia Union's number two, Fayetteville State's number three, Albany State's at four, Virginia State's fifth, Miles is sixth, Tuskegee is seventh, Fort Valley State eighth, Johnson C. Smith is nine, and Edward Waters, who's now Division II certified, is number 10. So Jared, why did you rank the poll the way you did? And most particularly, why did you rank Benedict number one?
Well, because I didn't do it based on paper. I did it based on what we last saw. And the last thing we saw was Benedict finish the regular season 10-0, and they won the SIAC championship for a second straight year. I don't If I was doing this by paper, by what we see on paper, I would have Virginia State won. Either Virginia State or Virginia Union won, because on paper, those two teams look like the best two teams in Division II HBCU football. But I put Benedict one to put some respect on their name and saying, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And they are the man right now. Woo, yeah. Like, they are the man right now. And Chinnisberry or no Chinnisberry, Luber Danellis or no Luber Danellis, Jaden Brogdon or no Jaden Brogdon, they are the champs right now. The same reason why I said I would have put Florida A&M at number one, despite losing Willie Simmons, Isaiah Major, and Jeremy Musa, Terrell Jennings, and all the players that they lost in the portal. Despite them losing all of that, they are number one because they were the Celebration Bowl champions. And until somebody beats them, I don't know who truly is number one. So somebody has to beat Benedict first, because last time I checked, ain't nobody beat them since 2021. And when I say nobody's beat them, I mean no HBCU has beat them since 2021. They have not lost the SIAC game since 2021. The same way Bowie, when they had their run with Dame before Damon Wilson went to Morgan State, somebody had to beat them, and they did. Same thing with Benedict. I got to see somebody beat him first. But if we were doing this by on paper projection, I would say either Virginia State or Virginia Union is number one.
Okay, why Virginia State or Virginia Union as number one on paper?
Because they retained the most talent, and they had the most talent going in. Virginia Union still has Jada Byers, who is arguably the top offensive player in Division II football. He has to put together a healthy season, a fully healthy season. Obviously, for Virginia Union he didn't have to last year, but he would definitely have to this year, because Virginia State is going to be better with Henry Frazier, who's going to be, I believe, in his third season with Virginia State. They have arguably the best secondary in Division II football, and will most certainly be in the mix to win the CIAA. I just think that those two teams are levels ahead of any other team right now in Division II HBCU football. If we were talking about the SIAC, I could see Tuskegee, despite the fact that they lost Antonio Meeks to the portal. There's so many teams in the SIAC. I don't think there's a clear favorite, but I feel like Tuskegee or Albany State could potentially, do something in the SIAC and put themselves ahead of everybody else in the SIAC. But I say Virginia State and Virginia Union because they retain the most talent and they have the most chemistry among all the other teams in Division II HBCU football.
Okay, Chris, you also follow Division II football uh, closely. Your thoughts on the poll and where you feel like teams should be ranked or should have been ranked, or are you cool with the way it is right now?
I gotta agree with Jared, man. I mean, and people, I last because I did the Division I polling, people were, surprised that I had Central number one because, of course, Central last time we saw them, they were losing to Virginia. I mean, not Virginia, Richmond in the FCS playoffs, and of course, Florida A&M won the Celebration Bowl last year. So I have to agree with his rationale in that regard. And Benedict, I mean, a lot of guys moved on, but the cupboard is not bare down there. They still got a lot of talents on that team. So, and it's interesting because I can't remember if it's Virginia Union or Virginia State they play in the Hall of in the Hall of Fame game.
State.
It's State. All right. So we're gonna know right away. We are going to know right away if Virginia State is as good as advertised, or is Benedict going to be, the top dog in the SIAC or Division II for another year. So we learned right out the gate. But I look at it, it's fair. Benedict won last year. Virginia Union made the postseason. They got sent to a hinterland in Pennsylvania, which really messed them up. Fayetteville State has not lost a CIAA South game, and I can't tell you how long. Albany State, of course, made it to the SIAC championship game. Virginia State's very good. Miles and Tuskegee had great years. Fort Valley State, of course, won the first ever Florida Beach Bowl. They played Josh C. Smith in that one. And Edward Waters, I still think that's the dark horse. We're not talking about Edward Waters enough. I still think they have a shot. I'm not saying they're going to win the SIAC, but it would not surprise me if they're in the SIAC championship game this year. But as far as the way the top 10 shakes out, looks good to me.
Yeah, I would agree with like the bulk of the poll, but I think for me, like we can't ignore reality, and the loss of Chennis Berry is going to hurt. I think to some degree, as well as some defections from their program to South Carolina State. Those guys following Chennis Berry over there, that might put a little dent into maybe the strength of Benedict, but I think Benedict's still going to be a strong football program. But I think you're right, Jared. Either Virginia Union or Virginia State, probably the two best teams on paper because of like who they got, who they return, and just their prospects. It's going to be a fun season, I think, in the Division II level, especially in the SIAC. But for me, like you don't have to prove it, and you have to prove it to me that you can beat Benedict as well. But like if you see the change that Benedict has undergone over the offseason, it does make them kind of vulnerable, I think. They very well may run the table again and go back to the postseason, despite losing Chennis Berry, despite losing some key players from their team last year. But I think right now, I got Benedict probably 3 behind the Virginia schools, just to be fair to them. They're still a great team, but not number one right now. But it'll be fun to play out. So who do you guys got winning the SIAC and who you guys got winning the CIAA? Starting with Jared.
If I had to put my faith in somebody to win it, well, first let me say this: nobody from the CIAA, whoever makes it out to CIAA North is winning. That's just plain and simple. All due respect to Fayetteville State, they haven't lost. They've won every division title since 2017. So that just shows you how weak the CIAA South is. But I would say whoever comes out of the North, and I have Virginia Union coming out of the North. I just feel like I need to see Virginia State take that next step. And they had that hiccup against Elizabeth City State that really set them back. They still had to beat Virginia Union in the last week, and they didn't. But that hiccup against Elizabeth City State was very telling. They have to show me that they can put together a complete season. And right now I have more faith that Virginia Union is able to put forth that complete season than I do Virginia State. So I have Virginia Union repeating as conference champions over Fayetteville State, obviously. But don't count out Johnson C. Smith to take that CIAA South title. They are building a nice defense led by Benari Blake and Benari Black. No, excuse me, Benari Black. Uh, they're building a nice defense there with Coach Flowers, and I think that they have what it takes to take that next step. Whether it happens this season remains to be seen, but don't count them out. But I do think that Fayetteville State will once again win the division title. But I have Virginia Union winning the conference. As far as the SIAC, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Albany State. I'm gonna go with Albany State to beat Fort Valley State. I believe that Fort Valley State, they are building something with Coach Gibbs. I think that what happened at Florida A&M is the kick in the pants he needs to take it up a notch with Fort Valley State, and I think he's going to get them to the conference championship game. He was in the mix last year with Tuskegee and Miles for that conference championship spot, but Albany State obviously ultimately got it. But this year, I think that he'll get there, but I think that Albany State. No, you know what? I think Fort Valley State will win it. I think Fort Valley State wins it, and they beat Albany State in the conference championship game. I think second guessing myself is probably going to hurt in the long run, but hey, it is what it is. So yeah, Fort Valley State beats Albany State.
Oh yeah, good point about Ellis Connor that there is no North and South for the CAA. Because they got the championship game. The teams with the two best records going to play for the championship. So
yeah, that's now. I'm saying
yeah.
I'm not saying that there's divisions anymore. I'm saying the teams that were in the CIAA South are not going to be in the mix for the CIAA championship.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Chris, who you think coming out of the SIAC, and who you think is going to come out of the CIAA? You kind of agree with Jared on that one?
CIAA for me is a little more concrete than the SIAC. I mean, I have to agree with Jared. I feel like Virginia Union with Jada Byers leading the way. If they can keep that man upright, we've seen that there are very few players that are Division II or Division I level, for that matter, that can match his talent out of the backfield. So if Virginia Union can keep that young man healthy and everyone else plays their role, then yeah, I got Virginia Union repeating. SIAC, a little more tougher for me. I mean, yes, we know that Benedict lost some guys, but I still think they have enough to make a strong run. Fort Valley State has the best quarterback nobody's talking about, Kelvin Durham. I mean, how he did not make an SIAC all-conference team in preseason is a mystery to me. Like, he was when you think about dual threats, Kelvin Durham was a dual threat for Fort Valley State last year. He played some amazing football from what I saw. Shouts out to HBCU Go and HBCU Plus, by the way. But I mean, you still got Miles, who wasn't bad last year. I mean, Miles was right up until last week. Albany State, I know, is the preseason favorite. I told you guys how much I like Edward Waters. So I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I got Edward Waters winning the SIAC this year. I'm gonna go ahead and throw caution to the wind. And when people come back and laugh at me in November, cool. I mean, I can see that Fort Valley and Albany and all those schools are going to look at this and say, all right, we see what you said, ball head, we got you, but cool. I mean, this is what we do. We talk sports, we give our opinions. So I'm going to say that Edward Waters makes the leap and wins the SIAC.
First of all, that is a very bold prediction. And
Yes, it is.
I like
Talk about a big limb.
Yeah.
Word to Tina Marie. I'm out on a limb.
Yeah, mainly because Edward Waters no longer has their quarterback, Jerron Russell, with the game-winning guy, the guy that threw the game winners against Tuskegee, and somebody else he threw a game winner against. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I think they do. I think they do have a chance to be in the mix, absolutely. And as far as Kelvin Durham, I absolutely agree that he deserved a lot more credit. Definitely deserved to be on the preseason team. He had some missteps last year with some inconsistent play, but he's definitely somebody that you can look at and say he's a top 2 quarterback in the SIAC. I definitely disagree with him not being on the preseason team. He at least should have been on the second team behind David Wright.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the favorites. It seemed like Jada Byers been in school for 6 years. They're running back at Virginia Union. I'm gonna go. It does seem that way. But I'm gonna go Virginia Union. Um, would I dare to go with Chris and Edward Waters? Why not? Why not? Why not? I say Edward Waters. Why not say Edward Waters, man?
Hey, I'm rooting for him. Definitely
I mean, we
rooting.
all should be rooting for him,
And
man.
don't count out Clark Atlanta either, because remember Teddy Keaton, who was at Allen and led them on their turnaround season. David Wright's there now, the reigning SIAC Player of the Year. Don't count out Clark Atlanta. They could possibly be the most improved Division II HBCU team from last season. Don't think they'll be in the mix for the conference, but definitely a team that could be a most improved from last season.
Definitely got things going on at football field apparently. With new turf coming for the 2024 season. Yeah, so I want to say this topic for the last topic. And we really didn't, speak too much about this when it broke, but over the weekend it was reported by various outlets that HBCU Go is expanding the reach for Black college sports. So much so that sporting events will be available in 95% of the households across America, according to the streaming service, obviously owned by Byron Allen Media Group, announced that their streaming platform, was expanding nationwide. The expansion includes Fox-owned and operated stations in LA, Chicago, and the Armed Forces Network. They've also, got deals with other networks too, which will make the reach even more encompassing across the country. Um, uh, this is very impressive for a network that's only been around for 3 years. It's something that has been desperately needed as an alternative from ESPN and previously with BET, which stopped showing black college sports maybe like a decade and a half ago. So fellas,
Longer
what do
than
we think
that.
of? Yeah, yeah, longer than that. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was in school, games used to be on tape delay. Had to wait around to like 8 9 o'clock at night to like watch that state play football. And the game was played like at 12:30 in the afternoon. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I think like the more options available with HCU Go, HCU Plus, schools are getting in the act as well by streaming their own games. I know the SWAT Digital Network is going to be broadcasting a bunch of football games this year. There's way more options to like actually see your favorite football team or favorite basketball team play. So what do we think about HCU Go expanding its reach across the country?
It's time that HBCUs get from under the Disney thumb. And I think that it's important to note, yeah, shouts out to Eye of the Watch. You have to remember Byron Allen has the assets from the Black News Network. So his built-in infrastructure for that media group is very much, already set in stone. But what Urban Edge is doing is phenomenal. We reported earlier that they were able to reach a deal with a couple of television stations in the Miami metro area. So that's another million plus people who are going to be able to see different SIAC football games this fall. And of course, the only HBCU in South Florida is Florida Memorial. No disrespect to them, but these kids get to see now that there's um, Tuskegee, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Lane, Benedict, Fort Valley, Albany State, Edward Waters, Allen, on and on it goes. And ESPN, they've done their job. I mean, it's always nice to see your program on ESPN, but they're always HBCUs are always going to be thought of as second fiddle compared to other PWIs at the FCS level, and especially now that the FBS schools have just dropped whatever metaphorical thing you want to use for dropping something on the table have done. They've just said, okay, We make too much money to give a doggone about what anybody else thinks. And ESPN's going to be like, yeah, you do. So we're going to just play all your games. So now that we're going to see HBCUs relegated to ESPNU or ESPN3 or what have you, that doesn't help anybody. But if you look at an HBCU Go, which is of course owned by Byron Allen, a black man, Byron Allen Media Group, and Urban Edge, which is owned by black folks, this is a chance to sort of revisit what Don Cornelius did with Soul Train in the early 70s. He built a very nice network off of a dance show that not only had black television stations, airing it, but also black advertisers. Like those of us who are old enough to remember the Soul Train shows would remember, things like Afro Sheen, Hair Solution, and all of that good stuff. So it's important that what HBCU Go and Byron Allen Media Group are doing, because now they're showing the way that there are more options for black college athletics to be seen, and that they don't have to rely on ESPN to just carry that message across.
Jerry, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I concur with what Chris said. Anything that keeps people from saying we need to have BET broadcast our games, because I'm so tired of people saying that. But anyway, yeah, I think this is great. I think the thing that we need that needs improvement based on televising our games is the presentation. Having people on the broadcast calling the games that have knowledge of HBCUs and not just putting out blanket announcing our games as if they don't know about the experience. Televising the halftime shows and giving proper perspective as to why it is important, and having more guests on our broadcast that are allowed to give more perspective into our HBCU programs. It's because, especially for HBCU football, our history is deep in terms of, yeah, exactly. RG3, all due respect to him and his football knowledge, but that's not the guy that I would go with. My personal opinion. All due respect to RG3, he does great calling, the college football games for College Football Game Day and stuff like that. But we have to have people who have knowledge of HBCUs and are not just going to throw up the horns like Mark Jones did during a HBCU football game, about to cause a riot on social media and doing that. You know what I mean? We gotta have people who have knowledge not just of football, but of HBCU culture. Who know about the Divine Nine, the people who know about what it's like to be on the yard, who know what it's like who know what a promenade is. You know what I'm saying? Who know what it's like to, what I'm saying? The ins and outs of HBCU culture. You know what I'm saying? We have to have people on these broadcasts who don't just have a knowledge for the game, because the game is obviously important, but they got to have a knowledge of the HBCU experience as well. So if there was one thing that I hope comes from this, is that we get more HBCU personalities on these broadcasts that are able to give perspective to viewers. Because if we're gonna inform people about HBCUs and why HBCUs should get more attention, we have to inform them about the entire experience, not just about the two teams that are playing on the field.
Yeah, and to that point, Jared, I know HBCU Goes broadcast. They have Charlie Neal and John Kelly, longtime broadcaster in television, calling games. They do a really great job. I've watched their broadcast is great. Charlie Neal used to be the longtime broadcaster for football and basketball was on BET. So I'd like to have him kind of come back after all these years and do games and still be one of the best in the business despite his age and his longevity. It's been great. It gives the network credibility, obviously, when you have a name like that as part of your operation. But yeah, like it's a really good thing, like, to get more exposure for not just like some of the big name schools in black college sports, but from the smaller schools too. Like, they're not on TV a lot. They don't get a lot of recognition locally or nationally. So to have a platform like this for them is great.